got all the recorders going? Very good. I'd like to call this meeting of the Clay County Commission to order. We will begin with our invocation. Administrator, when you are prepared, please proceed.
Please join with me in an attitude of prayer. Heavenly Father, we are thankful for this day that you have given to us, its blessings and its opportunities and its challenges. We are ever mindful of the opportunities to render our services to our citizens and to this community. We pray for strength and guidance as we conduct our business today. In his name, amen.
Amen. Please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Murphy?
Here.
Commissioner Thompson?
Here.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Here.
That brings us to the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion for approval of this evening's agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as printed.
Motion's been made for the approval of our agenda. Are there any additions to our agenda this evening?
Commissioner, I have two additions to the agenda. One is a discussion item surrounding partnering with the City of Liberty to get access to a more efficient COVID testing regime for county employees. And the other is a resolution 2022-15 to appoint Deputy County Administrator Donna Kuntz as our interim county administrator with interim Administrator Salisbury having wrapped up last week as we have this brief period of time before a new hire comes in, making Donna Kuntz our interim. So,
Very well. Motion has been made to amend our agenda by adding under discussion items partnership with the City of Liberty for COVID tests. It's the City of Liberty, correct? No, or
Generally, the COVID testing, we'll talk about that in the discussion.
okay, I just want to make sure I repeat the, okay.
Yep, thanks.
So that would be under discussion items, and then we would add under regular agenda items 2022-15 regarding the appointment of Deputy Administrator Kuntz to become our interim administrator.
correct. Thank you.
Very good. That being said, discussion.
No, thank you.
I'll just make this more as a note. So we will put 2022-15 at the end of the agenda. Is that good with everybody?
Perfect.
And then we would put, is there any, do we want to put the COVID testing, the discussion item, do we want to make that the third item, or do we want to move it to the top? Is there any particular preference there?
I think third works fine.
Third is fine. Very good. With that, any further discussion? Any comments from the public? Seeing none, please call the roll on the agenda. Excuse me, on the amendment to the agenda.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
And Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
That brings us back to Commissioner Thompson's underlying motion for approval of what is now the amended agenda. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Commissioner Thompson, you're recognized to close.
I close.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
That brings us to meeting schedule. Administrator?
Commissioner, our next commission work session will be held next Wednesday, which will be January the 19th at 2 p.m. Also want to note that next Monday, all of the county offices will be closed, which is January the 17th, in observance of Martin Luther King Jr. Day celebration.
Thank you. Something, as long as we are on meeting schedule, that I would like to put before the commission to get consensus on, and that is the what we see right now as that we would anticipate for the January 19 meeting includes a number of zoning issues which may in fact be well attended. I would like to see if we have commission consensus to, when we put our agenda together, to have the to have those items, which are the planning and zoning items, begin no earlier than 3 o'clock. That way, we don't have the people who show up for the planning and zoning issues basically standing around for up to an hour, and then we can get to it then, and that way we kind of do a little bit better crowd control. Is there any views on that, any thoughts on that one way or the other?
I'm fine with that.
Oh, yeah, that sounds good to me. Thanks.
And also, when we do that, when we notice that up, I I think, request that staff, when they send out the notice, make sure that that is separately indicated on that notice so that, it's not just in the agenda itself, but it is obvious to anyone who is interested. And it's my understanding that Planning and Zoning will be reaching out to the individuals who might have interests, who have expressed interest, to make sure that they understand that that would be the schedule. Very good. That brings us to honorary resolutions. There are no honorary resolutions at this point. Discussion items. The first discussion item, and we have three, would be disbursement of Arpa funds. And that is a commission point. I had asked to put that on there, and I would like to go ahead and, I'll go ahead and just say a couple of things and then open it for discussion and then kind of go from there. One of the things that concerns me is we are going through the Arpa funding in the absence at the moment of a permanent administrator. Deputy Administrator Kuntz is doing a great job on keeping up on all this, but I'm a little concerned about being overloaded. What I would recommend, and I would like to open up for discussion, would be the idea that we would put any new requests on hold with some exceptions so that we can deal with what we have. What I would recommend to the commission is that we would not proceed on any new requests for ARPA funds until we have a permanent administrator in place so that they can fulfill that position which our former administrator had been fulfilling. The exceptions that I would recommend would be that we continue forward with anything that is medically related that has an emergency type aspect to it. So if we're talking about hospitals or something like that, proceed with those requests. Those that are internal to the county government, so any requests from, for example, the Sheriff's Department, that we would go ahead and process those. And then the third that I would recommend not holding up on are those that are already in the pipeline, those that are already in process. That way we're able to kind of, bring the process into a little better focus. And because our Constitution actually outright says that the administrator is our budget officer. And these are budgetary type issues. So I feel if we can wait on those that are of a non-emergency nature until we have an administrator, we would be, it would be more consistent with our Constitution and how it was written. With that, I'll just kind of open it up for discussion and see if there are any thoughts. I have some other things that I would probably say about it, but I want to open the discussion up. So, Commissioner Thompson, do you have anything?
I do have a couple of questions, and I can see the point of holding off since we don't have a chief budget officer, exactly, even at this moment, and getting somebody up to speed and ready to go with this. But my question would be, so we can move forward with requests that are in the pipeline, but are we going to just shut down the application process altogether until, or are we going to allow new applications to come through and be cycled through our auditor and kind of weeding through some of those? Are we going to allow that, or are we just going to just cut it off and shut it down until things
No,
get up?
and that is a very good question. I suppose to add a little clarity to what I'm proposing is that we would not hear them in the commission, so that I think it's appropriate for them to still filter through our auditor to make sure that they are qualified. I think the virtue of that, among other things, is that if someone makes application and for some reason there is a concern about the application, that can be dealt with, and that would be ready to go when the new administrator takes office, and that administrator can then do their advisory role in that. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. That's a really good question because, hard stop, no, not necessarily. More of just kind of a pause so that we can get our new administrator kind of up to speed and make sure that that person is giving us the benefit of their advice.
Okay, no, I just want to make sure that we weren't going to just shut it down completely, because there may very well be other emergencies that'll come up in the community, and we want to be able to respond to those if we need to. I just didn't want to shut that whole valve off in case we need to keep it going. So.
And that is why I'm seeking consensus and not going for a resolution, because a resolution would be hard and fast. A consensus, I feel like, gives us flexibility if an unforeseen situation comes up. So I want to allow us as a commission to be able to move without violating a resolution that we had just passed. Commissioner Carpenter.
I fully support doing that, and you know, like you say, maintaining the flexibility to adjust if we need to. But certainly, we're talking about a lot of money, and making sure that we have all the pieces in place to make sure we're spending it in the best possible ways makes sense to me. And frankly, you know, just even broadening it out slightly beyond these next few weeks as we, you know, move toward having a permanent administrator in place. You know, I think we need to be judicious with the way we're using these funds. We increasingly have very sizable asks coming in. You know, last week we heard from the city of Smithville, obviously very large asks. And, you know, it just simply isn't the case that we can fund all of those. We would run out of Arpa funds very quickly if we were to do so. So I do think we need to be very cautious and careful with how we use these funds, make sure we're putting them to the best possible use. And so I think a few week pause here, other than for, as you mentioned, you know, emergency things. And you mentioned allowing internal requests to continue moving forward. And I think we need to be judicious there as well. We have had a number of very sizable internal asks as well. And I think we've spent dollars wisely so far. But, you know, as we all know, you know, we have to be good stewards of taxpayer dollars here, and don't want to necessarily send the message that we're saying yes to every request. Otherwise, we're going to run out of these funds very quickly, and there may be expenditures down the line that go unfunded as a result. So I think a few week pause makes sense, both to get a person in place as well as to you know, maybe give us a quick breather on some of these requests.
You know, something else that occurred to me, and it kind of follows up to the point that you were making, and that is this: perhaps it would not be a bad idea, and we can take this up at a future point, but we might consider sometime in that breathing space of discussing maybe a little bit more specifically our priorities, how we want to spend that money, any additional kind of measures that we want to take, other steps that we want to take to vet these requests. So it might be a good time for us to contemplate that, reconvene as a body at some point and discuss that, and make sure that when we're spending these monies, we've already kind of given some expectations, and certainly that would allow us to be able to give instruction to staff as far as, you know, what the demeanor of the commission is as far as what we want to request. But I think that's a discussion for a later time, and I think if we pause, we have the luxury of time to then consider whether we want to have that discussion or not. Is there any further discussion on that before I leave that topic?
No, other than to clarify, you know, as Commissioner Thompson said, I do think we should leave, you know, the application process in place and allow, you know, and create a queue here in which, you know, I don't want to send the message that we're shutting it down, but just,
Exactly.
as you mentioned, that doesn't mean we have to move forward with them and actually, you know, pass them in resolution form here at commission meetings. So.
Well, I like what Commissioner Thompson was saying, because this allows us to do more upfront work, so that if an entity is making a request and there is some shortcoming in their application that just needs a simple correction, we are able to communicate that and make the process go forward, so that there's not an unnecessary delay when it comes to that process just because of a simple technical error. Do you, as Deputy Administrator, do you feel like you have enough information there to sort of go forward with the consensus of the commission?
Absolutely, to go back with staff, yes. I think we understand the guidance and where you're going down the road with this.
And certainly as we go forward, if you or staff has questions, that you know, certainly we would hope to hear from you and provide any clarification as far as the direction from the commission.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. That ends the discussion on the disbursement of ARPA funds. That brings us to discussion county redistricting. That was an issue county council had brought up, and I believe we'll let you go ahead and get started on that if you don't mind.
Thank you, Commissioner. As you all know, that this body nominated 7 individuals in the county to serve as the County Redistricting Commission. They concluded their work last week. They considered 3 different maps. And those 3 alternate maps are up on this table, along with, on the far left, the current map of the districts of the county. And again, it's just for the eastern and western district commissioners. They voted unanimously to support one of the maps, which I think is labeled number 2. So as a discussion topic, I wanted to get it in front of you because obviously we're a little bit short on time when the filing will open for these, and we want to obviously give individuals as much lead time as we can. The hope would be that if the commission would consider it, to vote on one of these maps next week, but give you a week to think about it, look at them. Again, so you've got them. I think we can get more big maps as needed. And I think Myron Neth, who chaired this commission, is here, might want to say a few things, or you good? Yeah.
Okay.
So that's where we are.
Do any of the commissioners have questions of the counselor before we start discussion? Please proceed.
Thank you. So if we were to vote it out next week, right, that would be essentially hearing it the same day as voting it out. Do we have the option of having tonight work as the hearing of the proposal?
Not really. I mean, it's not really, there's not a resolution in front of you at this moment because, you know, it just happened last week. I've talked with Mr. Jones at Planning and Zoning. Right now, you have a map in front of you. What you'll see in the form of a resolution, I hope, next week will be something that actually identifies by roads and distances and, you know, to this street, so that it's clear for the election board. Because right now, I don't think the election board could take this map and actually turn it into precincts without some additional work. So I anticipate that you'll have a resolution in front of you next week, technically on first read, is how I think it would be handled, with the hope that if there's consensus that you might pass it next week, but if not, it would go to second read the following week on the 26th.
Understood. Thank you.
Commissioner Thompson?
No questions, thank you.
My understanding, just a couple of points of clarification. One is that this is happening in cooperation with different parts of the government. There are members of staff who are in communication with both, well, obviously, Mr. Jones is part of the administration, but also with the election board to make sure that what we submit will be legally compliant and adhere to any regulations. So there are a number of people entering into this process to make sure that we are, at least on a technical level, where we need to be. Second thing is one of the reasons for some degree of, I don't know if urgency is the right word, filing for these offices, and there will be 4 new offices that will be affected by this at the county level. The filing for those start on February the 22nd. Filing ends March 29. So obviously it would help for the people who are contemplating running to be able to have a map to be able to look at. Certainly now that it's here, it has been, and now it is certainly public information that somebody can look at it and at least understand what is being contemplated. I guess the last point that I would like to make is that the Redistricting Commission, this is the product of a unanimous vote on their part. So I think we've been able to see at least that body reach a consensus, and I certainly want to express my gratitude towards not only Chairman Neth, but also the entire board. They worked very hard on this. They went through a lot of discussion, and it was the product of a good deal of thought and hard work on their part. And I think that we certainly appreciate what they were able to produce and put before us tonight. The other question I have is we will, at the point when we consider it next week, we will have a pretty good estimate for how many people are in each one of those, just to verify I guess it's a 10% rule that they need to be relatively equal.
Yeah, and I can address that. I mean, yes, we actually have those numbers. They did, this group did a great job. They came up, every map they came up with was very close in size. And I want to say that this map is within just a couple hundred people between the east and west. I think it's within 1%. Under less than 0.5%. So they were very mindful of, population. Courts would request that they be compact and contiguous. They were mindful of that. I observed several of their meetings. I thought they did a great job. Very thoughtful and hard work, and they got to it.
Well, one point of pride, I guess, that we can take is we are going to have our map drawn before the state has theirs drawn. So I think that's generally something we can be grateful for. I'll go around one more time. Is there any other comment from any of the commissioners?
No, thank you.
Any more discussion? Any citizen wish to comment? Very well. That brings us to the end of the county redistricting discussion. That brings us to the COVID testing discussion item. Let's see, Mr. Carpenter, Commissioner Carpenter, would you like to take the lead on that?
Sure. And I'll turn it over to County Council pretty quickly, but I think the situation that the county workforce is facing is the same as workforces around the country, which is that we have a lot of people out sick with COVID. We have a massive surge happening right now with this latest variant, and a lot of people are out of work, and we want to make sure that we have the best, most efficient, cost-effective testing regime in place where folks aren't having to stand in line for hours and that kind of thing available to our county employees. And I know there's an opportunity perhaps to partner with the fire department in Liberty, but I think council can speak more to that.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I appreciate that. I appreciate everyone taking the time to consider this. Commissioner Carpenter is exactly right. The COVID increase has been dramatic, and it has impacted, we read about it all over the country. It's impacted this building. It's impacted every facility we have. We have multiple employees who are out sick or needing to quarantine at this moment, and it is really stretching the county's ability to provide services, particularly when in 2 days we're hearing that we may have another winter storm, and we have highway workers that we want to make sure can do their job on behalf of our citizens. The problem we're running into is that there is a lack of available testing because so many people right now are trying to get tested all throughout our county. Human Resources reached out to me this morning about this, and essentially what I'd like, I guess, is, without getting into detail, is just to see if there's consensus from the commission to allow Human Resources to explore as many avenues as possible to make sure that we are getting effective and reliable and as quick as possible testing for our employees, for their safety, for their coworker safety, but also so our citizens are getting services. We are exploring several options, one of which is certainly with the Fire Department of Liberty. That would probably be our best option if that works. But Human Resources believes that this is essential, and they may be coming back to you right now they have the budget, but they may not have enough soon. So they may be coming back to you either to request some budget for this topic or perhaps a transfer out of Arpa to talk about your internal opportunity. So I just want to give you that heads up. That's where I think we're heading, and we'll get more information on this, but we really need to be able to quickly respond this week if we can. So.
Thank you. And yeah, that was what I had in mind. I just didn't want to jump the gun from one discussion to the next. Commissioner Thompson, do you have anything you'd like to add to the discussion?
I think it was basically covered, and I think this is a great resource. We need to make sure we keep our citizens safe and our employees, make sure, if we can cut down on who has COVID and keeping them in quarantine if we need to, but also providing the services that our community needs. I think this is great. So no, I'm fully in support of this and whatever we need to do. And that's why I want to make sure, we weren't just going to cut off all those ARPA funds, and we could still, in case we need to tap in there to get this taken care of. So yeah.
So in the bottom line, we don't need any vote tonight, just an awareness that these funds are going to be expended out of HR, and HR may be coming back to you in the future asking for some additional assistance to keep those funds available.
And it's my sense that the commission is supportive of that effort.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think at the end of the day, we can't have county services lapsing due to a workforce shortage, or at least we got to do everything we can to prevent that. And, as Council mentioned, with 2 or 3 or 4 inches possibly of snow coming here in a couple days, sounds like a real challenge to make sure that we can keep the roads clear and do everything else we need to do. So I think making available any funds necessary to make sure that happens makes sense to me.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
And thank you both, Mr. Counselor and Commissioner Carpenter, for bringing this forward. Does the administrator feel as though that she has what she needs to be able to proceed on this issue?
Yes, we very much appreciate, this has been a hot topic most of the day today with 2 or 3 different meetings taking place to discuss what was going on. So we do appreciate your being able to address this so quickly, and especially to our counselor that was able to meet with us earlier today to help give us some guidance on how we could approach the issue.
Great. That will, unless there's any other comment, that will conclude our discussion on the COVID testing issue. That brings us to the end of our discussion items. Public hearings. We have no public hearings scheduled. That brings us to our consent agenda. Is there, we have 2 items under that. Is there a motion related to the consent agenda? And I would remind commissioners that at any time until we call the vote, that a commissioner may remove an item from consent and put it on regular agenda. That being said, is there a motion related to this evening's consent agenda?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as published.
Motion's been made for the approval of this evening's consent agenda. Discussion? Commissioner Thompson?
No, thank you.
Any comment from anyone in the public? Seeing none, please call the roll.
Yes.
Yes?
Thank you. That brings us to this evening's regular agenda. The first 3 items are companion issues. That's 2022-07, 08, and 29. Administrator, when you are prepared, please proceed.
Yes, 2022-07, 08, 09 companion items are all for Water's Edge Estates. We have planning and zoning, it's the zoning ordinance, preliminary plat, and final plat. And we have here our planning and zoning director, Kip Jones, here to speak on the matter.
Please proceed.
Kip Jones, Planning and Zoning Manager. This is the Water's Edge subdivision that we discussed last week. It's a rezoning preliminary and final plat for 7 lots near Smithville Lake that range in size from approximately 7 acres to approximately 10 acres. Staff believes this project meets all the county regulations. The Planning and Zoning Commission voted to approve. We had 1 letter of opposition that was passed out at last week's meeting. The only update I have to this case is that the applicant is out of town tonight and could not attend tonight's meeting. But other than that, I'm happy to answer any questions the commissioners may have.
Are there any questions from the commission of Mr. Jones?
No, thank you.
Very well. Is there a motion related to 2022-07, 08, and 09?
I'll make a motion to approve 2022-07, 08, and 09.
Motion's been made for the approval of 2022-07, 2022-08, 2022-09. Discussion, Commissioner Carpenter?
No discussion. Thanks.
Is there anyone from the public who would care to comment on these items? Seeing none, Commissioner Thompson, you're recognized to close.
I close?
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes?
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
That brings us to 2022-01. Administrator?
2022-01 is a request for Arpa funding to assist Arts of Clay County. And to readdress again this week, we have our county auditor, Victor Hurlbert, here.
Please proceed.
Yes, Victor Hurlbert, Clay County Auditor. So Resolution 2022-01, as a reminder, was a request from Arts Kansas City for funding. It was initially a budget request, and because a decision was made to leave nonprofits at steady funding at 2021 levels, we offered the opportunity to apply for rescue plan funding if it was in fact eligible. They demonstrated that it is, essentially as an impacted industry, as a way, because of the pandemic, that it is in fact eligible. The U.S. Treasury Department released a final rule last week. It doesn't take effect technically until April 1st of this year, but we did, verify against that new final rule as well that it is, again, still eligible on page 421 as an impacted industry. So essentially the program, as remember, is to essentially market Clay County arts and be strictly for that, and then we in the auditor's office will subsequently monitor and make sure that that's what it was spent for. So that's essentially it. There are representatives here tonight if there are any questions.
Are there any questions of the auditor?
No questions.
No question.
Very well. If the applicants would like to speak, they certainly are welcome to do so.
No comment to make if there aren't any questions. Just thank you for the opportunity.
Go ahead and please, if you could identify yourself.
Sure. I'm Brandon Harrelson, Senior Manager of Government Affairs and Public Policy with Arts KC. So I should say it's the program is for asset mapping, which more than marketing and telling the story of Clay County will actually help us assess where the arts assets obviously are within the county, and maybe more importantly, where they aren't, and where those gaps may be able to be filled in the future, to create a robust community here within Clay County, outside of the city center. So,
By the way, I did neglect, if a citizen would care to come forward and speak, please make sure the green light is on, which it is on the microphone. Speak into the microphone, and we have some recordings that are audio only, so by identifying yourself that way, we know who is speaking. With that, are there any questions or comments from the commission?
No, thank you.
No questions, thank you.
Thank you very much for being here this evening.
thank you.
Is there anyone else who would care to speak on this issue? Very well. Is there a motion on 2022-01?
Commissioner, I move that we approve 2022-01.
Motion has been made for approval of 2022-01. Discussion? Seeing none, you're recognized, Commissioner Carpenter, you're recognized to close.
I close.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
And Commissioner Thompson?
Yes?
Thank you very much. That brings us to 2022-02. Administrator?
2022-02 is from Rebuilding Together Kansas City for the Safe at Home program. Clay County Auditor Victor Hurlbert is here to speak.
Please proceed.
Yes, Victor Hurlbert, Clay County Auditor. So Resolution 2022-02 is similar to our last request in that it was a budget request from one of our nonprofit agencies through that selection process. And essentially, the funding for Rebuilding Together Kansas City was held stable, but they had a higher request of $30,000. And so we offered the application process if it was indeed eligible, and in fact it is, because under both the interim final rule and now the final rule, home repairs and weatherization are eligible categories. So I don't think I see a representative here tonight from the agency. But again, similar process, we will do post subrecipient monitoring of this expenditure.
Very good. Are there any questions for the auditor on this issue?
No questions, thank you.
Very good. Are there any comments from any member of the public on this issue? Seeing none, is there a motion related to 2022-02?
I'll make a motion to approve 2022-02.
A lot of twos in there.
I know, so I had to take a pause for a minute.
Motion's been made for the approval of now I'm doing it. Motion's been made for the approval of 2022-02. Got it. Discussion?
Just that I, reiterate what the discussion we had last week. It's a fantastic organization, does a lot of work, and I'm glad that we're able to help support that.
Very good. With that, Commissioner Thompson, you're recognized to close.
I close?
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes?
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
That brings us to 2022-03.
2022-03 is a request from the City of Smithville for raw water supply projects and Smith Fork wastewater pump station. This is another Arpa project brought to us from our auditor, Victor Hurlbert.
Please proceed.
Yes, Victor Hurlbert, Clay County Auditor. So Resolution 2022-03 is a request from the City of Smithville. Just a short reminder, we are funding two of their projects that they have already committed their entire rescue plan grant to, essentially just to get them over the edge for the full cost of that at $805,495. There are representatives here tonight, but I'll just reiterate that it's also eligible under the final rule because, again, the Clean Water State Revolving Fund and Drinking Water State Revolving Fund eligible projects are also eligible under the final rule. This one is different in that we will be doing quarterly reimbursements, is how we'll essentially gather our records in that sense.
By the way, I appreciate you mentioning that these our programs are reimbursement based, so that we are not just, the money is not being distributed, but it adds that layer of accountability, which we certainly appreciate your office monitoring all that. And you'd said this was the first of three. Clearly, though, tonight we are voting on just this one, 03.
That was the agreement we reached, correct?
Very good. Are there any questions from the auditor on this issue?
No, thank you.
No questions, thank you.
If the applicant would like to speak, they are certainly welcome to do so.
Good evening, Commissioners. Cynthia Wagner, City Administrator with the City of Smithville. I believe we answered questions last week related to the request. We certainly appreciate your consideration of this request that relates to water funding and sewer funding, that those infrastructure funds address and assist the residents of the City of Smithville. So those are greatly appreciated, as is your consideration. We stand for any additional questions you may or may not have. I also have Chuck Souls, our Public Works Director, here to answer any specific questions on the project.
Very good. Are there any questions?
No questions, no.
No questions, thank you.
All right, very good. Thank you very much. Is there anyone else who would wish to speak on this issue? Any comments from the public? Seeing none, is there a motion related to 2022-03?
I'll make a motion to approve 2022-03.
Motion has been made for the approval of 2022-03. Discussion?
Thank you, Commissioner. Yes. So I do support moving forward with this funding. It obviously is an eligible expenditure under Arpa, and, it sounds like an important and necessary project. And, as we discussed last week, certainly makes total sense to me that the good folks at Smithville would apply for this funding, and I do not begrudge them that at all. I think it was a smart thing to do. I do think it's our role to be, as we discussed earlier in the discussion item, to be judicious with the way we expend these monies. And it's one thing when we're talking about the smaller requests. When we're talking about really sizable ones, I do think we need to agree to them carefully. And also, as we discussed, make sure that we distribute any funds that aren't going to stay internal to Clay County, that are going to go externally, that we distribute those in a way that is sort of regionally fair and dispersed evenly. And so while I'm supportive of this here today, and it's a big, this is over $800,000. This is a big chunk of money. I do think moving forward in terms of giving any sense of further commitment to future projects, I do think we're going to have to distribute these funds fairly across the county. And so where I'm at on it is I don't foresee myself in terms of the other requests that were part of the original package. That doesn't feel likely to me to be a thing that I'll be able to support. And so I just want that to be out there, because one of the things I wanted to make sure to do was make sure this was sort of the highest priority ask, and the sense that I got from last week's discussion is that it is for the city of Smithville. But we've only got so many millions here, and when we start doing multi-million-dollar chunks, obviously we can run out of funds quickly. That being said, this sounds like an important project, and I plan to vote in support.
I have a lot of sympathy for your comments. This was one of the things that was on my mind when I recommended that when we go through this pausing process, that we contemplate on how this money is dispersed, because you're absolutely right. It sounds like a lot of money, and it clearly is, but we need to be thinking, we need to be cognizant of how that money is distributed, and to make sure that it is done in a way that is fair to all the municipalities and the other entities that will be involved. So like I say, this is one of the types of issues I think that would bear discussion from the commission, maybe outside of the moment of a specific ask, but more of a policy discussion as opposed to a specific spending request. So that it might be good for us to have those discussions in that light, and then come to a determination of where we want to be as a commission, and how we want to expend these monies. So I think that's I think that would be a healthy discussion for us to have. But I also am supportive of this particular ask. I think it has certainly qualification, and it's merited, and it has a real need, and it serves the best interest of not just Smithville but the county. Commissioner Thompson?
Well, I have nothing else to add. I'm glad we were able to move forward with this, and we were able to just open the door for conversations, but I think that was, last week just helped us move forward and how to distribute these funds. So, yep, that's all I have to add.
And let's see, yes, there is a motion on the floor for this. Are there any comments from anyone else from the general public? I think I asked, but I try to always make sure I do include that. Seeing none, if there are no further comments and no further discussion, Commissioner Thompson, it is your motion, so you're recognized for any further comments and close.
I close.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes?
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Thank you very much. That brings us to 2022-04. Administrator?
2022-04 is brought to us by the Highway Department. It is to approve 3 change orders for the Boone Construction Company. We have Deputy County Administrator Administration, Carl Walters here.
Thank you.
Good
Please
evening,
proceed.
Commission. Carl Walters, Deputy County Administrator of Clay County. I bring you 3 change orders. Number 1 on the change order is change of days for the Greenwood Road Bridge through Boone Construction, which is a 120-day build, was changed to 170 since we got late on the approval to get it moving. So they wanted to change that because now we're into winter weather. Number 2 was to reduce the cost of the contract to $21,540 due to traffic control, which we're doing. We've got the barricades up and we had the signage up and stuff like that, so they didn't have to supply any of that. The other part of it is the pile driving of the steel for the concrete pillars. When they drive them in, they turn around. Now they've got a system that they can put to the steel rather than 10 pounds hitting it 10 times and making sure it's hit solid ground. Now they just put a machine on it. It tells it that it's hit something solid, that they don't need to strike it no more. So it saved us a little bit of money, so that only some of them went 80 foot, some of them went 60 foot, so they didn't have to go near as deep and then to build the piers, and so that saved us some money on steel. With that being said, on number 3, with the time lapsed in the approval of the bridge, with the flooding that we had, the creek that runs through there, Fishing River, had done some erosion that's down the road that they've got. It's in the part of that build. It had eroded closer to the road, so now they're putting a rock bed into it, so they brought that to our attention. We made sure we went to MoDOT to get a BRO approval to make sure we could do it under 80-20 match. They approved it, so they're changing that to make sure that that rock bed gets in there so it doesn't erode anymore when the flooding comes through. So with that being said, of the 60,000, less the 21,000, we'd only be out to 38,585 above, which is under the 80-20 match.
Very good. Are there any questions of the Deputy Administrator on 2022-04?
No questions.
No questions, thanks.
Very good. Thank you for bringing this to our attention.
Thank you, Commission.
Is there anyone else who would care to comment on 2022-04? Is there a motion related to 2022-04?
Commissioner, I move that we approve 2022-04.
Motion's been made for approval of 2022-04. Discussion? Very good. Commissioner Carpenter, you are recognized to close.
Thank you, I close.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes?
That brings us to 2022-11. Administrator?
2022-11 is to appoint a member to the Airport Advisory Board, and each of you commissioners should have an application in front of you from Mr. Samuel Taylor.
I went ahead, I was the one who, of course, put this on the, requested this be put on the agenda under our Constitution. The presiding commissioner nominates to advisory boards with the advice of the administrator. I did consult with Mr. Salisbury, our recent administrator, and he was also supportive of this. The next step is it comes before the commission for consideration and for their approval if they see fit. So with that, I would just like to say that Mr. Taylor is very, very qualified. I've spoken to him on the phone. Is he here this evening, by the way? Okay, not. Okay, very good. One of the things that struck me when I was doing my research on this gentleman was that he has on the bottom of page 2, volunteer as a pilot with the Pilots in Pause organization. And that I found that intriguing. I did look it up. There was some publicity on that. There was a news article related to his activities on that. And that's one of the things that appeals to me about this particular person is certainly qualified, certainly has all the academic and the objective qualifications. But I think it's always nice when we can put on the additional layer of something where the applicants have given back to the community and they are doing things that are not necessarily their bare bones requirements, but go out of their way. There's also the Challenge Air for Kids and Friends, another organization that gives opportunities for children with various disabilities to fly in an airplane, which is something that's got to be a real kick for them. That being said, I'll stand for any questions that the commission may have on this particular applicant.
No questions from me. Thank you.
I have no questions, thank you.
Very good. Are there any members of the public who'd like to comment? Seeing none. Just for one other point of information, there were two vacancies. There were 2 vacancies on the Airport Advisory Board. We recently approved one of them, so this will be the second. And am I correct now that we have with this appointment, should it pass, we will have a full vote on the Air Advisory Board?
Yes, for the Airport Advisory Board, that would be correct.
Great. If there are no further questions, I close. Please call the roll.
You're making the motion?
I did make a motion. I did not make a motion. I apologize. Okay, I will make the just too many things going here. And this only has 3 twos in it. I'll make a motion for the approval of 2022-11. Discussion, any further discussion from the commission?
No, thank you.
Any comments from the public? Seeing none, I close. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes?
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Thank you very much. That brings us to the end of our regular agenda.
It does not.
It doesn't, oh, I'm sorry, we
have-
added one. I've
We
got
have
enough.
2022-15.
Yeah, I'd written it off to the side, so
Yep.
I skipped over that. I apologize. We do have one more issue. That is the one that we added when we approved the agenda, 2022-15. That is, so if the administrator would like to read the,
I've got it
I
with
believe
me.
I'm going to give it to the county
Yep,
council.
I've got it.
I'll let the council read it.
Yep, this is to appoint Deputy County Administrator Donna Kuntz as our interim county administrator and interim budget
Thank you.
officer. As you all know, Ms. Kuntz has been gracious enough to serve in that capacity with the exit of Mr. Salisbury. This just confirms that from a practical standpoint, but really the most essential part of it is it now would allow Ms. Kuntz to sign everything that needs to be signed as budget officer to keep the bills paid and the lights on around here.
Very good. Sorry about that. Are there any questions on this issue of the counselor or of anyone else?
No questions.
No questions.
This is unusual in that we are bringing it up as an immediate action type of item. This is our first hearing of it. However, that would qualify, I think, under that urgency makes it qualify for this immediate action because we do need to, as you say, pay the bills, keep the lights on. So I wanted to remind commissioners that this is our first hearing of it and that we are voting on it, which is a little bit different than what we would usually do, and make sure that there are no concerns that anyone would like to express.
No concerns. Thank you.
Is there a motion related to 2022-15?
I'll make a motion to approve 2022-15.
Motion has been made for the approval of 2022-15. Discussion, Commissioner Carpenter?
No discussion. Thank you.
Anyone from the public care to comment? Seeing none, Commissioner Thompson, you are recognized to close.
I close.
Please call the roll.
Commissioner Thompson?
Yes?
Commissioner Carpenter?
Yes.
Very good. Now, that should bring us to the end of our regular agenda. That brings us to comments on non-agenda items. Are there any members of the public who would care to comment on any of the items not on this evening's agenda? Seeing none. Are there any office holders who would like to make any comments on items not on this evening's agenda? Seeing none. Are there any agencies who would like to comment on any non-agenda items? Sure.
My name is Barry Moore. I'm the mayor of Missouri City. And at our last council meeting, the council asked me to come and see about any programs out there like your ARPA, if there's any funds available for the cities in the county that you're appropriating funds for, any programs or anything like that?
Yeah, depending on certainly, what the purpose for those funds would be, that's obviously going to qualify them for different things. Auditor Hurlbert is still here. He would be a very good first stop for you to make as far as ARPA funding goes. Once the auditor has heard heard what it is you're looking for specifically, there may be some additional guidance that can be given so that you can go forward.
Well, we don't have any full staff members because we're such a small town, so we don't know what all's out there and available. So I talked to Victor yesterday, and he started us down the road with the treasurer, Missouri State Treasurer, going through that website, and our city clerk's done that. We just didn't know if there's anything else, because if it's got to be COVID related, we don't have no businesses or full-time staff members that, according to Victor, they had set aside like $59,000 to the city, if I remember right. I mean, how do you get that without being COVID related? Is there kind of back door or something, or?
The auditor, I think, has something to comment on that, or where you mean you just want to touch base offline?
Either way, I'll just say that there's a...
Oh, come on up to the mic if you...
Okay.
Yeah, Victor Hurlbert, Clay County Auditor, and the county's, certainly happy to, further work with you on the application or on, any other questions as far as eligibility. I'll say initially the interim final rule had this very complex revenue loss calculation, but the final rule really opened that up to allow basically that entire amount to be used on general government services as it's defined. So really anything that's within the purview of the what your city does, you could use it on. So I'm happy to review that though and assist you with that. But yeah, I think good first step would be get the state's portion for sure. So yeah.
Might also not be a bad idea to reach out whoever your state representative or senator is and see if they might be able to provide you with additional guidance.
Okay, appreciate that. Like I say, without a full staff and stuff, we just don't know what's all's out there. And I heard a couple comments that you're giving Smithfield like $805,000 for waste treatment pump and stuff like that. Is there anything like in the floodplain that you're allocating for like floodgates or anything like that?
To get into the specific issues at this point is maybe not productive, because we need to understand first off what the specific project is. And to tell you the truth, the person taking point on that, and certainly we cannot thank him enough, is our auditor, who is essentially the resident expert on but he is a very good resource, and certainly any questions that the auditor does not have an answer to, he can certainly direct you to where you might be able to glean those answers, whether it be the state or in another venue. But like I say, I think getting your state representative involved is not a bad first additional step, and see what is available from other governmental entities, so that you can put together what it is you need to do.
Okay. All right. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much for attending this evening.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would care to comment on any non-agenda items? Seeing none. That brings us to comments from the administrator. Are there
No,
comments?
no comments, thank you.
That brings us to commissioner comments. I'm going to make one, and that is, I want to again express my appreciation for Commissioner Thompson. She has, during calendar year 2021, been our presiding commissioner pro tem. That office is a new one created by our Constitution. The pro tem would then take the lead on the meetings and any other functions of the presiding commissioner in the absence of that person. And she has served for the year that she was slated. We are now ready to go into 2022, and I'm happy to name Commissioner John Carpenter to be the presiding commissioner pro tem for the year 2022. That is something that is allowed under the Constitution for me to name, and I'm certainly appreciative of Commissioner Thompson's work, and I have every confidence that Commissioner Carpenter will be able to fulfill the duties of that office. And so I will go ahead and give you a signed document to that effect, and also one for the clerk so that it can be properly recorded. And like I say, I think once again that the harmony that we now see on the commission is in very large part due to the efforts of the associate commissioners and their ability to be able to do the job that we have all been elected to do with little or no wrinkles. We're always going to have some disagreements, but it has been remarkably calm, remarkably harmonious, and I, for one, certainly appreciate the new atmosphere that we are under here at the courthouse. So with that, Commissioner Thompson, do you have any comments you'd care to make?
Well, Jerry, Commissioner Nolte, sorry, I was like Jerry. So I wasn't going to say anything, but now you've put me in a position. So no, it was an honor to fill in for you when you were not here. And there was only one meeting where I had to step in, and I don't think it went too terrible. And it was very brief. So, but other than that, I have no other comments. But thank you.
Very good, Commissioner Carpenter.
Well, I just want to say it's an honor to have this job and to do this, and thank you. And I will try to fill Commissioner Thompson's shoes to the best of my ability every day. So thank you.
Well, unfortunately, she wears high heels, so I think you've got yourself quite a job. That being said, that moves us to approval of minutes of previous sessions. I don't think we have any, do we?
I think so.
Very good. Yeah, I want to ask next time before I make another gaffe. That brings us to written reports to the commission. Are there any written reports to be submitted to the commission?
None.
Very good. There are no executive sessions for this evening. That brings us to recess and adjournment. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Stop doing that. I keep calling you Jerry in the meeting.
That's okay.